Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Harris. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm also a registered play therapist, as well as a board certified telemental health provider. And a licensed marriage and family therapist, I work a lot with couples, families, and a registered play therapist. That just means that I have additional training and experience working with children from as young as 4 years old all the way up. I'm also a WMFT approved supervisor. So WMFT meaning the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy. And so I received additional training to be able to supervise and mentor other therapists, to mentor students who are studying marriage and family therapy, and also to mentor provisionally licensed therapists. Provisionally licensed, that just means those who are on their way to becoming fully licensed. When I started, I did not start with my bachelor's in psychology. When I migrated from Trinidad to New York, I actually came with the intention of studying to be a doctor, right? That's what my parents wanted. And so I started on a path to do pre-med. However, after about a year of studying that, I just realized it was not something that I wanted. My heart was just with psychology. I was really, really curious about psychology, and I've always had a passion for it. I remember in Trinidad growing up, people always telling me that I was good at giving advice and they wanted to tell me their problems, and I just naturally enjoyed it. And so after doing pre-med for about a year, I decided that I did not want to do it anymore, and I switched majors to psychology. My parents were not thrilled about it, but it was just one of those things where I had to be honest with myself about what I really wanted to do, and I had to imagine, where can I see myself in the future? What did I really, really enjoy doing and wanted to get paid for? So look for opportunities where you can volunteer, where you can get a taste of what it's like to be in the field that you're interested in, before you actually go deeper into it. So after graduating from my master's program, one of the first jobs that I had was at a pain and wellness clinic. And so I worked with a lot of people who, they were workers' comp cases. So that means that they got injured on their work site, and it developed into chronic pain. And so most of them, they were unable to return to work. They lived in pain, just extreme pain. There were a lot of them were on pain medications. And so with that, I saw a lot of anxiety, a lot of deep depression. And so my job there was to use art to help them manage their anxiety, to help them manage their depression. It was an 8-week program, and at the end of the 8 weeks, they had the opportunity to graduate. And so with using art as in therapy, so it wasn't talk therapy, it was more art therapy that I was doing with them for 8 weeks. They were able to better manage their depression. They were better able to manage their anxiety. And for many of them, they either stopped the medication that they were taking, this really strong and serious pain medication that they were taking, or they were able to decrease it. Some of them were able to return to work. So it was really powerful just to be part of that experience with them. At times, I still do a little bit of work with this company. So often they're based in California, and I do cognitive behavioral therapy with them. And moving along, after that, I took on a really brief position as a college psychology instructor. And one of the reasons I did this was I had relocated to Texas with my husband, who was in the military. And when moving from state to state, many times with counseling or with therapy, you have to be licensed in the state that you are in order to provide therapy. And so when I just moved, of course, I wasn't licensed in that state, so I couldn't really continue with providing therapy, but I knew I still wanted to stay in that mental health field. And so I took on a job teaching psychology to college students. I loved it. I love teaching. And it's something I hope to maybe do again one day. And then after that, I settled in North Carolina for a while, and one of my first jobs there was working with a community agency. And This was where I was not fully licensed as yet as a marriage and family therapist. I was what is called provisionally licensed. So that's where I was licensed and I worked under a supervisor, but I was accumulating hours so that I could eventually become fully licensed. And that usually takes about 2 to 3 years to become fully licensed. But with this position, and I was in Raleigh working with this community agency, and my position was an intensive in-home team lead. Another really great experience. I was the lead of a team of about 3 or 4 people who were there. And so we would go into the homes of children and teenagers, go into their homes and provide intensive therapy. So we would be there for maybe 2 hours at a time. Sometimes it's twice a week that we would be there just providing family therapy and individual therapy. Sometimes we had to go to their school and find an office in their school to provide services to them. But with these kids, I saw a lot of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, ADD, oppositional defiant disorder, ODD. There was a lot of grief and loss, a lot of trauma, anxiety, depression. Some of them were just refusing to go to school. And so these were some of the issues that we came upon with working with these kids. And while I was there, I got promoted to being the clinical supervisor. And as the clinical supervisor, I was monitoring all of the other intensive in-home team therapists and just kind of managing that program. In in 2014, I started my own private practice. So now it's called Serenity and Grace Therapeutic Services. And I started off as a solo practice. I thought, okay, I'll just do this on my own, have my caseload and do my thing. But then eventually I decided to bring some therapists on board with me. And we had a group private practice there for several years in Wake Forest. And that was 2014, and then last year, 2019, I made a big shift with my business. And this happened when my husband, we took on a new job for him that took us to Georgia. And so when we decided that we were going to relocate, as a business owner, I had to just really think carefully about what my options were and what did I want to do with my business. Like, there were many choices that I had. And so ultimately, after a lot of reflection, I decided that yes, I still wanted to keep my business open, but I was going to change the model that I had for it. And that's when I transitioned last summer to it being a virtual private practice. And so that's when I also decided to do additional training so I could better understand what online therapy is all about. Because before COVID-19, online therapy was not really very popular. It was there, but it was not very well known. There wasn't a lot of research done into it to see how effective it is. And so I did my certification to become a board certified telemental health provider. And now I provide consulting to therapists who want to grow their own online therapy practice. I coach them on how to do that. I also coach them on how to work with children online, which is another really interesting area that because of COVID-19, it's developed and grown faster than expected. And so I have my virtual practice and serve several states. We provide services in North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and California and Utah. And there's so many ins and outs with running a practice online. But it's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about providing high quality service with online therapy. And so along the way, even though I didn't really plan to be an entrepreneur, it evolved as I just continued to remain open to opportunities. So before I had mentioned, being open to internships, being open to volunteering, and it's the same way, just to be open to where your career might lead you. Because you might start at the beginning thinking, oh, I am going to work in a hospital, right? But then yes, you can have that as your guide and as a focus, but just be open to other opportunities that might present themselves, because we don't really know what we don't know until maybe we get there or we learn more later on. And so, opening up my practice, it started when I was at the group private practice. So I was actually working for someone else, and I was content with that for a while. But then eventually, I was doing really well and having my own clients and people just finding out about me independently from the group practice. And someone actually suggested, hey, why don't you just start your own business? And I was very hesitant at first. You know, it's a scary thought, especially when you weren't really planning to do it. I did not go to school for my MBA or anything like that. And then I also found that in my master's program, you know, they didn't really teach a whole lot about running a business. And the thought was very intimidating, but I was curious about it. And I think I had that entrepreneurial spirit in me where I wanted to give back. And sometimes when you're working for someone else, you're limited, you're restricted by what you can do. And it's almost like you're working towards someone else's vision. And I wanted to be able to have my own vision, have my own dreams for how I wanted to share and inspire others and be of service to others. And I started off with just kind of tiptoeing into the idea of having my own business. So just very tentatively, I got into it. And that over time grew. Like I said, I didn't plan to have a group private practice. I started off just as a solo private practice. But then once I saw that the doors were opening and I continued to reflect and pray, and I felt like I was being led in that direction. So by staying open, I was able to just continue to take those steps towards growing my own business. But with growing a business, there's a lot that comes into play, especially as a woman, especially as a woman of color. I had to be more aware of what role I wanted to play in the community that I was in. So I was in Wake Forest. I specialized in child therapy, and this was what I became known for. But in addition to having a passion, which is also really important, I also knew that I had to master my skills, right? So I couldn't just jump into running a business and just thought I can just wing it. Right? I had some natural skills, which is part of my personality. I had some natural skills such as being structured and being organized, but I knew that there was a lot that I did not know, and I had to also be someone who was willing to learn. I did not want to go to school to study for an MBA or anything like that. If I had the time, I probably would. But I decided to get training in other ways. So some of the ways I sharpened my skills as an entrepreneur is through a lot of reading. I found people online who I admired, who I saw had their own business. I loved how they did it. I found people who were able to combine their passion and spirituality with business, and I sought them out as role models, even if it's from a distance. I read their books, I did every free webinar that they were offering, and I paid for some. But those were just some of the things that I still continue to do. I'm always learning and trying to sharpen my skills with it. And then something else I also did was just collaborating with others. So networking with other business owners and just learning from each other, asking questions, and just sharing knowledge. But it's so important to just stay on that path. And to really work on the mindset. There's so much to it. The mindset work, the personal work is so important. And again, especially as me, as a woman of color, sometimes we find ourselves just stuck in these limiting beliefs. Or maybe I didn't really see any people looking like me who were doing what I was doing, but I had to still have that confidence and certainty that I wanted to do more. One of the greatest challenges that I have, and I think that it's ongoing, is trying to find balance with things, because there's always something to do. There's always something lingering, some email that needs to be attended, some phone call to return. Just there's always something to do. And it's a challenge trying to balance that, especially as a mom with two kids who want my attention, especially now during COVID-19 when they're home all the time, they're not in school during the day. And so my time management skills have had to just be very intentional. And so one of the things I do is the night before or the weekend before, I plan how I'm going to spend my day. So I'm going to end here. My website is on the screen, sgtherapeuticservices.com, and that's the website for my group private practice. And then I also have a website just for myself, sarahgharris.com. If you have any questions, you're welcome to just send me an email.